Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the EV Geek podcast. I'm your host, Joel, and on today's episode, Sebastian Clark will be joining us again as we give you our top 5 electric vehicles. Let's get started with episode 7. Welcome back to the podcast, Sebastian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
All right, so you are joining us from where today? You have a special location. Where is that?
I am in my car. I'm in my Chevy Bolt.
That's a great place to do a podcast from your Volt. So you don't have to worry about wasting any gas or anything like that. So I want to thank Sebastian today for experimenting with us on our first video podcast. So up until this day, we have been all audio, but now we're going to start moving forward with some video podcasts as well. So we'll see how this turns out. On today's episode, we are going to give you our top 5 EV picks, and nothing scientific about it. It's just according to us. We got to choose our own criteria on how we would select our top 5 EVs. We'll discuss that shortly. We didn't disclose our picks to each other, so I have no idea what Sebastian picked, and he has no idea what I picked. So we may have some of the same choices for different reasons. So Sebastian, let's get started with you on your top 5. What criteria did you use to choose yours?
Yeah, so I just kind of did 3 basic criteria. My first one was range and charge speed, which those I was considered having those separate, but I put them together just because really, like, range might not be as important if you have an awesome charge speed, and then vice versa. And then kind of just like practicality, and then do I think it's cool?
Okay, do you think it's cool? Okay, so I went with 2 choices: affordability and reliability. So on my list, you're not going to see some of those exotic cars. We're not going to have those cars that are 6 digits and things like that. I wanted to pick cars that people could actually, get into right now. For people who can't afford those cars, kind of like you and me, we're going to have to look at the lower end models of these cars. So that's the criteria I went with. So are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm a dreamer.
Yep. Maybe someday we'll get into those cars. So what was number 5 on your list?
So my number 5 was the Model S.
Okay.
Mainly so, and I had a little note out there that my favorite Model S is the Plaid because it has all the good stuff of a Model S, but then they turned it up to 11.
Yep.
But it's the original kind of I guess not mass market, but it's the original long range EV. Really, it kind of Tesla did it kind of first, and so I was in school when it came out, so it was kind of like it was a poster car. It was cool. And then it's, continued. It's just only gotten better since it was new. And so my criteria, range and charge speed. So the Model S currently can be had with, I believe it's over 350 miles of range.
Yep.
And then it charges pretty well as well. And then it's practical, and then it's, it's a big full-size sedan. You've got a big trunk, you've got a front, plenty of interior room. And then, like I said, I just think it's cool.
Gotcha. So my number 5 pick is kind of a wild card. So it is the Volvo EX30. So I kind of like this car. I'm glad we're starting to see people like Volvo and Kia come out with smaller priced vehicles. I actually almost put the Kia EV3 on this list, but it's technically not out yet, so I didn't. So this is priced around $36K to $48K. So you can get into it relatively cheap. It's got some quickness to it. The dual motor's 3.4 seconds, so that's not bad. It does have a 64 kilowatt pack. That's going to get you about, I believe they say, 275 miles. It's got the cool LED lines, kind of like, I call it a poor man's Tesla because it does have just the one screen. It has the Scandinavian kind of IKEA look to it. Wireless CarPlay and Android Audio. That's not a big thing for me, and maybe for you and your Bolt, but with the Tesla software in my car, I don't use wireless CarPlay and Android Audio. I do know my wife's Kia EV6 that doesn't have wireless CarPlay and audio. It has to be wired. It is a pain in the butt because you have to hook your phone up and things like that. It's got the cool soundbar at the front, so there's no speakers anywhere else except for the soundbar in the front. I'm really curious what that quality sounds like. It uses Google AI. I did hear the software is kind of glitchy, which I guess is kind of expected for new vehicles like this. Charged at 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. I guess that's about average. It's not great. It's not blazing fast, but it's about average. It peaks at 152 kilowatts, which I believe the Kia EV3 peaks around that same kilowatt as well. Again, that's average charging speed and average charging kilowatts. So number 5 for me, the EX30. Number 4 for you.
So my number 4 was, you mentioned it before, but it's the EV3. the Kia,
Ah,
which doesn't technically exist yet, but just from what we've initially seen and what it sounds like on paper, I mean, it seems like it's a real grand slam of a car. It's a compact crossover, but it doesn't necessarily have that kind of compact crossover look. It's got more of it looks like the EV9 but shrunk down. And I already thought the EV9 looks really good. And so it's got the practicality of being a crossover. It looks like it's going to have pretty good range, and the charge speed, we'll see. It depends on the curve. They only advertise that peak of like 128 kilowatt, but we'll see if it holds that deep into the pack. It's a good thing. Which I'm thinking it uses the same pack as maybe the EV6 and Ioniq 5. Seemed like it was the same capacity, which those cars charge like monsters. So hopefully that trickles down. And then I think it's cool. I think it looks good.
yeah. So I did notice the EV6. It does hold. My EV6 does hold a peak, pretty well. It gets up to about 75, 80%. You're still cooking at about 160, 170 kilowatts. So it does hold that peak pretty well. So hopefully with the lower charging speed of the EV3 does hold that peak higher. So my number 4 actually didn't make the list until they refreshed it, and that was the Mustang Mach-E. I've watched some videos on the refresh, especially the rally mode, the rally edition that I believe Out of Spec just put out the rally edition when they took mudding. It looks really cool. It gets you about 290 to 320 miles of range, 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. I've been in one a few times. It is a quiet and a smooth ride. Ford kind of has that going for them. I believe the F-150 that I drove into was a very quiet and smooth ride as well, kind of like you were riding on a cloud. It's spacious. It does have the one vertical touchscreen in it. It does offer over-the-air updates, which is good to go. Has Apple CarPlay, Android Audio, mobile Wi-Fi if you want that for a hotspot. It's probably something you have to pay extra for. I'm not sure, but for the price, $41K to $65K for that higher end model, and you're going to get 300 to 320 miles. I think it's a good deal, and you can probably just go to any Ford dealership right now and find one.
Oh yeah.
All right, number 3.
All right, my number 3 is a ridiculous choice, but I promise there's a reason for it. I put the Hummer EV truck.
Why?
And really it's because it's ridiculous. So you've
Yes.
got a huge battery, 212, 215 kilowatt hour usable, which lets it get good range.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somewhere in around 350 range, I believe. And then it's got that super fast charging. It like peaks at over 360 kilowatt and rides it pretty deep into the curve. I think at 80%, it's still pulling almost 200 kilowatt, which is insane. And then it's, it's ridiculous. It weighs 9,000 pounds, so it can get to 60 in 3 seconds. It's a full size truck, so it's still practical. The roof comes off.
Yes, it does. I got to see that this weekend. The roof does come off.
I know.
Yes.
Aren't you cool?
Yep. You need to pop down and see it
But
sometime. So
I know I do. But yeah, so it's just a ridiculous vehicle, and it's one of those. If money wasn't an object, I would 100% buy one. I don't know if I would drive it every day, but I would buy one.
yeah, I'm wondering how much that would cost to charge at home from 0 to 100, and how long that would take on a level 2 charge at 11 at 11 kilowatts per hour. We can do the math. That's going to be ridiculously long.
I think
to
it
charge
does.
that.
I think it does 80 amps, so it'd be 19.
Okay, 19 kilowatts. Okay, gotcha. So
it helped, but it'd still be slow.
That's still slow. So I'm assuming that is built on the same platform as a Silverado and all those, correct?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we have one down or I don't have one. They have one down at Evolve Auto. It when you're in it, it feels like a tank. You're that high up. There's that roof. Yeah, that roof. I'm sorry, the hood is so deep. You feel like you're in a tank, and there are blind spots you do have to watch out for, because especially driving a Bolt, and you get into that thing, it's gonna you're gonna tear up some stuff. Number 3 for me, I have the Tesla Model 3. So I like the refresh they did with it. It wasn't a major refresh. They kind of just, tweaked the front a little bit and did some things to the inside. But, you get the range with that, the about 220 to 325 miles of range, depending on the model, things like that. You do get the heated and cold seats now, 0 to 60, 2.9 to 4.1. If you go to the performance, it's going to go ridiculously fast. You get great DC fast charging, 20 to 80% in about 20, 25 minutes. That's pretty standard on all the Teslas. It has that minimalistic view, so inside. So if you don't like that, this is not the car for you. Just has the one touch screen. They did take out the stalks for blinkers. and gear changing. I haven't driven one of the new ones yet to figure out if I like that or not. I don't know if I will, but I'm sure it's something you can just get used to. No Apple CarPlay or Android Audio, but that's like I said, doesn't matter to me. But that is a sticking point for most buyers. It does have great navigation. It does have great over-the-air updates, great safety ratings, very affordable now. So that was my number 3. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. Number 2.
Yeah, so my number 2, which it was a little bit of a toss-up, was I ended up picking the Ioniq 5. And so the other option there would have been the EV6. But I personally like the look of the Ioniq 5 a little bit more. And it's got fast charging. They quote 10 to 18 or 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. And then pretty good range. It's about, I think in the rear-wheel drive trims, it's 300 miles, which if you can go 300 miles, charge for 18 minutes, that's pretty good. We're getting to almost gas car levels there. And then they just announced the Ioniq 5N, which is apparently a beast.
I think
Makes the car
I think it recently did Pikes Peak, or they went allowed on Pikes Peak or something like that on the race. So I'd be curious to see that.
Yeah, but yeah, just I think it looks cool. I like kind of the retro future design of it. And I've sat in one a couple times, and you get in, and it just feels way bigger on the inside than it actually is. There's tons of legroom in the back, and like little things like the second row seat slides, so you can get more cargo space if you need it. Anyway, so I just it's a good package to my opinion.
Gotcha. So my number 2 is also the Ioniq 5. So with you, I decided between the Kia EV6 and Ioniq 5. My wife, she loves her EV6. I don't like, I compare the Ioniq 5, like you said, I think the Ioniq 5 is just more sleek looking. The EV6 kind of has those hips on it, and I it's great for her, but I just kind of like the Ioniq 5 better. Like I said, love the lights, kind of the pixel lights in the back and things like that. It just looks very futuristic. The charging curve, that is correct on a charging curve. We've taken my wife's EV6 out, which is a sister to the Ioniq 5, and I did, I think, 15 to 80% in like 18 or 19 minutes. It was stupid quick. It got up to like 225, 230, and it just held there. And it was enough for me just to go inside real quick to the bathroom, get back out. We were almost ready to go. Great DC charging, like you said. It's got the cool interior. It's got the digitized dashboard. They do offer a model with the heads-up augmented reality. I saw that on one of the SE models. It's really cool because a lot of cars that I drive, especially the Teslas and all that, don't have that heads-up display. I would agree with you that the front and back is a lot of room for people to sit in. However, I do think the trunk, I don't know, for some reason, just the trunk is small. When I compare to it doesn't go down, it's more raised a little. Width wise, it's okay, but up and down, it just seems like it's more lift, and you can't fit that much stuff in it. Like I said, you're going to have the wired Apple CarPlay and Android Audio. But the design of that car is really cool. All right, finally, number 1, what you got?
So number 1, I ended up settling on the R1T.
Ooh.
And initially, so like 6 months ago, my number 1 probably would have been the Lightning. But at this point, I think kind of the price delta between your long range Lightning and your entry level R1T is so close. I think I would pick the Rivian every time. Now, of course, the Rivian's a mid-size truck. The Lightning's full-size, so there are some differences there. But I'm not a person who necessarily needs a truck all the time, so I don't need a full-size truck. But I love the Rivian packaging. You've got the super nice interior with good material choices, and they do all the cool storage stuff like in the R1T. You get the gear tunnel, you get a large front trunk, you get your, it's a smaller bed, but you have the truck bed with storage underneath it. Just packaging wise, it's really good. Super comfortable interior. You get all this, niceties. You get the driver plus. You get just all the cool stuff. No Android Auto, no Apple CarPlay. But for me, that's not a big deal as long as the software is good. And everything I know of says that the Rivian software is good. For me, if like the Bolt software is better than it is, I probably wouldn't worry about Android Auto. But I use it because it's not great.
The software. Yeah, I think to compare the software with the Rivian and Tesla is very similar. I mean, the displays, the interaction with the software, it's very similar to Tesla. So I think that's one thing Rivian did a real good job with, and they're real good with their over-the-air updates. They're very frequent with their over-the-air updates. My number 1, I'm boring. I went with the Model Y, just because I've driven that car for 3 years now, and it's just a great overall EV. I mean, for the value, for reliability and affordability, it's the best car out there now. Up to 330 miles of range, 44 to 54. I mean, with the tax credit now, you're looking at with the long range model around, I think, 42, 43 with the tax credit. I mean, compared to what you were paying, a few years ago for those cars, it's ridiculously low. Lots of storage, roomy, great entertainment. It's got the Hulu, Netflix, YouTube already built in, video games for kids. Great navigation, same thing as the Model 3. So that'd be my number one. I'm curious to ask you why none of the other Teslas made your top 5.
So I don't necessarily have anything against them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like the Model 3 to me, like I know it's a good car, but it's a little boring.
Okay.
Um, it's I don't necessarily like that it's been described as it, but it's a good descriptor. It's the California Camry. I read that somewhere, and honestly, it makes sense.
That is true. Yes.
You know, it just blends in. You know, it's a great car, but it's just it's a car. And the kind of same thing Model Y. Like I like the Model Y. I like the inside. I like the interior of a Tesla interior and all that. But at the end of the day, it kind of just blends in
Mm-hmm.
as a just kind of normal crossover. That's kind of the Ioniq 5. It's a normal car that looks interesting. Or
Yep.
some of the other options.
Yeah, especially if you're looking at luxury. I mean, when I was talking with Jason about his, Cadillac Lyriq, if you're used to someone having a car like that and then going to like a Tesla, you're like, wow, this just looks plain. There's a screen and there's even no stocks anymore. It's just a screen and that's it. So I could
Right.
understand that. So
Yeah,
last
it's one of
question.
those.
Go on.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it's like you either hate it or you either hate it or you love it. And so some people really love the minimalistic design, and then other people, they want all that info. They want to be able to get, the gauge cluster and see speed or map or whatever there, and then have music. So it's just, that's just a big personal preference.
Yeah, I would say the Teslas are very polarized. You either love them or hate them. There's no one like, it's okay. You either like, I love this car or I can't stand this car. Last question. So what are some of the picks that just missed your top 5?
So I kind of mentioned it already, but like the Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those cars that I still look for every now and again, try to find a good deal. Because they're starting to get into the you can get them below 40 grand. That's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous territory.
Yes, it is.
um, just like the Lightning, I ended up picking the R1T because the price of the new Lightning has gone up so much over the years. When it came out and they were announcing, you could get the work truck or the Pro trim for 39 grand. It's a no-brainer. That's how much a gas F-150 work
Mm-hmm.
truck was. But now the work truck starts at 50 or 55, and then the XLT goes up from there. So with the pricing, that's how I ended up at the R1T. The R1T is, maybe it's a little more expensive, but like the minimum range on it, the standard pack is 270 miles, whereas the standard pack on the F-150 is only rated for 230.
Yeah,
And
slow.
so if you want to get up and so if you want to get up to the big pack on the F-150, you're dropping an extra 10 grand just immediately. And that's before you talk about like the XLT trim is nowhere near as nice as the Rivian R1T. And so that's kind of how I ended up at the Rivian instead of the Lightning. Even though I love the Lightning, I would drive one. Anyone want to give me one? I'll take it in a heartbeat.
So I had 3 that almost made the list. And they're kind of similar to what you said. I did have the Ford F-150 on there. I think it's a great car. But yeah, it was great a year and a half ago when it was $39,900 for that base model. I'm like, oh my gosh, $40,000 for a base F-150. And that lasted about 3 months. And then it shot up another 10, 15 grand, 20 grand. To where it didn't make it affordable. The EV9, like you said, I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be the first family kind of EV that we have out there, so I'm excited about that. That just missed out, and again the R1T as well. I did get to drive that one for a little bit. It's a really nice ride. With the suspension, what you can do with that, the little things like the subwoofer up front, or the flashlight, or the air compressor, just some of the little neat things that they offer. So. All right. So those are our top 5. Like I said, nothing scientific about it. Thank you, Sebastian, for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So yes, I want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode, and a huge thanks again to Sebastian for joining us. You can find Sebastian on X at Kilowatt Station, and you can find the EV Geek on YouTube and on social media outlets by searching the EV Geek. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified when new content drops. We would love to read your comments on our top 5, and feel free to share your own top 5 as well, whether or not you agree or disagree with us. You can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/EVGeek. Please consider becoming a paid Patreon member to help support and grow our podcast. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again on the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.